You're listening to A Bit Later, a midlife stand-up podcast. I'm your host, Steve Ziegler, and I'm sitting down with comedians from across the globe to find out why they are pursuing stand-up comedy and what they are learning about themselves at this stage in their lives. Jack Brown is a stand-up comedian from the Chicago area. He is a 54-year-old married father of two who has been doing comedy for just over 2 years. Originally from Pawtucket, Rhode Island, Jack was always the funny kid in class and was voted wittiest in his high school superlatives. He holds a communications degree from the University of Rhode Island and spent his career in media advertising sales. He started in New York City and has worked for Turner Broadcasting, NBC, Universal, Fox, and the Big Ten. Jack's work in media ad sales provided him with a great deal of public speaking opportunities in different formats, which is where the stand-up idea began. He has been a fan of comedy since he was a kid. As he grew older, it was a bucket list thing he'd never thought he'd try. I'm glad he did. Let's talk comedy with Jack Brown.
Sounds good. So I live in the suburbs of Chicago, originally from the East Coast. So I grew up in Rhode Island and lived in New York for a long time. I've really gotten into stand-up over the last 2.5 years. I did my first stand-up in 2019, just did a little bit and then took a break, but I've been doing it straight since about 2.5 years ago, and am absolutely hooked on it. So I live in, like I said, the suburbs of Chicago, and great city, great comedy city. In fact, the first time that I ever did comedy was at Second City
Cool.
in a stand-up comedy class. But really excited to talk to you and talk about me doing comedy at 54.
54, so you started when you were 52, right?
Right.
So tried a little bit in your late 40s and then stopped. And in 2019, was that the comedy class or is that more recent?
2019 was the first comedy class that I
Gotcha.
took at Second City. And it was get up. The classes were get up, do your material. Let's commentary from the students on material. And then the end was a stand-up show with all of us, which I think is kind of the model for comedy classes, at least as far as I know. And the idea that I could do a stand-up show was just thrilling. And I felt really good about the comedy that I did. And I've done a lot of public speaking in my career. So there was a lot of that, like just being very comfortable on stage and being comfortable with a mic in my hand. But then I really took a break. And when I got back into it, I took another class here in Glenview, Illinois, which is close to where I live. And that also was a class and then a show, and then a bunch of continuation classes for people who are a little more senior. And then I've done a lot of shows at this place called the Laughing Academy, which has professional comedy shows and comedians from all over Chicago.
I've seen that on your Instagram. But a lot of your clips are at the Laughing Academy that you've been
Yes.
sharing. So,
Yeah.
okay, that's very cool. So, before we talk about your career, and I'm sure growing up in Rhode Island was interesting. I don't know how much Pawtucket has the mafia around, but then so you were East Coast, then you were New York, and then Chicago. But what was the impetus for you to start again at 52? What really inspired you or pushed you to do that?
I never really lost the love of it. I just was busy with work and busy with family, and probably just got too busy. And then it was just comedy has always been a bucket list, kind of something that I've wanted to do. So when I first tried it in 19, I loved it, and I just got busy afterwards with just life. And then a couple of years ago, is a combination of just really saying, "Hey, I really want to try this. I think I'm good." And having a place like Laughing Academy, I will say, Laughing Academy and the owner, Kim Hiller, who she's actually a Second City. This is a coincidence, but she was trained at Second City with a lot of folks like Steve Carell and Tina Fey. And she started a school, but she also does comedy shows there. And she's been an incredible mentor and someone who supported me through it. Um, so it was always something that so the second time I was like, I'm not letting go of this. I just want to keep going.
And to be clear, you're still also working, right? Or are you retired?
Yes.
You're still
Yep.
working. So how do you balance it? How do you balance this newfound love of comedy? You're going out. I'm not sure how many times a week, but we'll talk about that. But how are you balancing life and comedy and your career?
You know what? It's hard to get. I think I really feel comfortable with my stage presence and my confidence. And I feel really confident with my writing. But the stage time, it's a juggling act. So I don't get out as much as I'd like. I try to get to a couple open mics a month. Um, it's definitely challenging, just because I still have two kids at home and I'm still working my regular career. But whenever I can, like I'm always writing. Literally every night, I'm writing. Um, and it's not like I'm setting candidly time to write. It just come jokes or I have a premise, I write it down, and then I go, oh, here's an angle to take with that. Here's a new joke. So I literally am probably writing every night. The For me, the biggest challenge is getting stage time only because like my days are pretty full and again working and juggling a family, but um that's the last key that I got to get out more.
It does become difficult, and I'm 40. I don't have kids, and it is just the career aspect of it. I can probably get out to more mics, but what I'm finding is I'm having difficulty carving out the time to write, um, and I have to balance that. I also have to come up with new material, of course, but that's impressive. I think you might be the first person on here that says that said you write every day. Um, I don't know if I'm wrong about that, but I think you are the first person that said that. Different people have different, obviously, styles and the way they organize things, but you're
Well,
making a
and
point.
I
Yeah.
don't actually like, again, I'm not scheduling time, but I'd say almost every night I have an idea. And if so, what I do is I keep a one of those note apps.
Yeah.
I'll look it up while we're talking.
Like a Scrivener or something like that, or
Yeah,
Evernote.
or like an Evernote. It's
Yeah.
actually called UpNote. So all my premises are there. And it's not like I'm setting time every night, but I'd say every night something kind of occurs to me and I write it down.
And just is that something that maybe happened in your workday? Is it something silly you've observed with your kids or kind of just, well, I mean, we know it can be anything, but where are you drawing your most inspiration from?
I actually think, and this might be weird. I'd be curious if you ever talk to anybody. I think when I have the premise, it's working in the background of my brain in a way. And so I'll give you an example. So I'm working on something having to do. I have a joke about the Midwest, where um, first of all, I didn't grow up here,
Right.
but we are neither mid nor are we west. So if you look at the map,
Yeah.
we're actually the Middle East. And
Yeah.
then when I'm on stage, I go, "You're all Middle Easterners. Good old Middle Eastern values here in America's heartland." And then I say, we like to say we're Middle Eastern nice here. So that's like a joke. And then I moved into, because I'm from Rhode Island, which is, I was always trying to find like, where are the things that are universal? And I realized like Rhode Island is a state. It's not an island. This is a state. So I had some jokes on
Yeah.
that. So last night, for example, I've been thinking about a bit about the United States of America, which kind of clicks in. It is a weird name for a country, the United States of America, right? We all take it for granted,
Hmm.
but it's not. There's Canada, there's Mexico, there's England, there's France, and we're the United States, not too united. So I'm still working on it. It's not fully complete. But like for example, last night, all of a sudden I looked up like what were the states in the Civil War that tried to secede, and the states were amongst many that we all know, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, and all of a sudden like it popped into my head that like my son could have been taking a class and said, Dad, did Abraham Lincoln wanted to keep Florida and Alabama in the country? And I'd be like, yeah, why did he want to do that? Like fucking Lincoln, you
Yeah.
know, like we could have been much more. Those are the things that kind of pop in my head. And it's not like I'm sitting and writing, but I'll wind up every night going, that's something, or that's something. And I don't want to say every day because it's not daily, but it is like that's how my mind works and how I joke write.
I get it. Do you ever like run that by? Have you had the experience of like running it by your wife or a family member, and
Yeah,
it
I
never
run all
comes
over
off
to
as
my wife and my daughter. If I get a like, I'll kind of know that there's something there, or they'll tell me there's
hmm
nothing there.
hmm
Um, so that's kind of how I do it, and they're both very funny. Um, they probably get tired of after a while, even if your dad is really or husband is really funny, they don't see the jokes the same way. But I also know like even as I'm explaining to you, Steve, it's not fully baked, but there's something there. And that's like a little bit of how I write. It's just stuff occurs to me, and I should, if I could, sit down and spend more time actually writing. But it's a little bit of how I do it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's good. It's a good process. Sometimes I find myself writing on the notes app, like at a mic, and especially if someone goes before me and is like touching on a topic that I know they're doing it way better than I'm going to, I'll scratch that from my list and I start to do things a little more, or I'll start reading the news in the back of the room and just try to come up with something topical in the moment. Um, but at home, I'll usually like work on a premise, see something I observed. I'm drawing a lot from like my upbringing as well, in that. So let's talk about Rhode Island a little bit because right now there's the Real Housewives of Rhode Island. Uh, I've grown up on the East Coast my entire life, but I don't think I've ever
Where are you
been
now?
to Rhode Island. I'm in Philly.
You're in Philly. And you're fairly new to comedy as well.
So yeah, I mean, the short story is I used to promote shows about a decade ago. Had a lot of fun doing that. Dabbled in some open mics here and there, but I really just started going to mics within the past 6 months. So I used to promote a lot of shows, work with a lot of local comics, and then drive. I drive. I managed. Yeah, so I basically drove comedians to and from New York a lot as like a manager, quote unquote. But
Yeah,
yeah, in terms of doing comedy, this is new. And like you, it's something I've always loved growing up and something I felt like I should get back into now.
that's great. Love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Um, and you were mentioning something about growing up in yes,
Yeah.
I'm getting a kick out of the Real Housewives of Rhode Island. And you're from the East Coast, so Rhode Island is so small that anything having to do with it is is like you feel connected to it. And my wife happens to be a Housewives fan, so we're watching that show.
I've seen a little bit with my girlfriend. I realize I probably should pay more attention to make references to it. Because someone else brought it up, one of the comics from San Diego. She said she watches a lot of reality TV and specifically mentioned that. So
Yeah.
I have to tune in a little more. So I've seen your bits about like accents and things like that. So you don't have like a Boston, Rhode Island accent. Is that something you had to shed or something that you never had growing up?
Um, I assume I had it because my parents do have it.
Hmm.
But I think I haven't really. I went to the University of Rhode Island, and then I moved to New York. I think I lost it if I even really had it. My parents have it, so I'm
Hmm.
going to assume I have it. It wasn't a conscious decision, but I will say I'm glad I don't have it right now, um, because I do have some friends here from Massachusetts, and they have a deep. Don't pronounce it as like Paki Cal. Let's drink
Yeah.
some beers. Um, it wasn't a conscious decision, but I'm pretty pleased with my universal accent, which is what I think I have.
Yeah. That's always nice to have, especially when performing too. Uh, so what, in
Yeah.
terms of sensibilities, like what have you seen as like the difference from being like an East Coast guy to now being a Mid East guy? Uh, how do you see the difference in culture in general, in terms of what you maybe audiences or just kind of the vibe in general?
In general, and again, I lived in Rhode Island, but then I lived in New York for many years. There's a big difference. The Midwestern nice, which I don't know if you're familiar with or not,
I am
but
not.
so there's Midwest. It's almost like they say it's more polite. It is on the surface. People are still as petty or whatever as any. It's not as if everyone's nice here in the Midwest, but there's more of an edge on the East Coast, um, Rhode Island, Boston, and then obviously I lived in New York. So that edginess is different when you get to the Midwest, where people are actually nicer. It's just not in your bones to be, hey, get out of here, like move out. I'm walking to the subway, or
Right.
just that pace of speaking. Um, and there's a niceness where if you're on the East Coast, you're a little more apt to say what you think, and if you're in the Midwest, you're a little more apt to like shape it, and put it in that nice tone overall. So I have found that in life and in comedy, in life too. Like I came from New York, and working in business, like you don't take any shit. People give you shit, you give shit back. Um, if you raise that tone, and that's kind of a joke I haven't fully explored, I've thought about it. There's a tone like
Definitely something
you could
there.
get in an argument in New York, but you're still like friends.
I
But
agree.
if you raise your voice in like that same manner in Chicago, people be like, "Whoa, whoa," in a different way. So it's definitely part of life and part of comedy.
Yeah, I agree. And then, well, if you get out west, then everybody starts getting passive aggressive by the time you get to California. But I prefer the East Coast edge. And what you just said, my girlfriend's been here sometimes. She's from New Jersey, but like a nicer town in New Jersey. And I grew up in Philadelphia. So people outside talking, she's like, are they yelling at each other or are they having a conversation? I'm like, they're just having a conversation. I was like, there's
Yeah,
no one's angry in this situation at all. She's like, I really couldn't tell. She's like, I couldn't figure that
yeah.
out.
Well, I
Yeah.
had that at work actually. Like when I'm not a yeller, period, but just the edge in your when you work in New York, you're getting yelled at kind of. It's in a way all the time, and you don't really think that much about it. But it's just New York speak. It's fast paced. I
Mhm.
always say Chicago business, because I worked in New York business and I worked in Chicago business, and it's the same a little bit in comedy. Um, it's the same as like you get on the phone with someone fast, hurry up, let's go, quick.
Mhm.
You get over here in Chicago, it's a little nicer, a little more polite. You're doing the same thing, but the edge in your voice can catch people. Every so often, I'd get that because I'm from the East Coast edge, and it would throw some people off. Let's
Yeah,
say
I'm sure. I'm sure. How long were you in New York? How long did you live there?
15 years.
Wow. So I'm sure. So you're at basically the cultural center of America for 15 years. And what was that experience like? I know you were in sales and marketing,
Yeah.
and how do you feel like that's driven your stand-up career? Like, how do you draw from that for your comedy?
Well, both being in New York, but also working in, so my career has been in media advertising sales, and I've been blessed enough to work for major media companies like Turner Broadcasting. I started off at TBS and TNT. I worked at NBC. Um, and not just working at NBC or NBC Universal. I also worked for Telemundo, which is part of NBCU. Presenting was a huge part of my job. So you'd either be presenting to clients, we'd be going to advertising. So basically, I sold advertising time. So if you were watching, uh, for me, it was Telemundo, but it was like prime time. I was the one who sold McDonald's and Target, but I'd have to present a lot to clients. And it was that knowing how to present and public speaking. And then the other part was when you would have internal presentations, those would be way more nerve wracking than presenting to clients. Because you present to a client and you don't do well, your bosses don't really know. You just kind of had a bad, maybe you didn't, close the sale.
Right.
When you present internally, like at NBC, it makes or breaks your career. And that's really where I got the bug. So the first time I had to do a really big presentation at NBC, it was kind of a boring research topic, but I had all the bigwigs, like all the bosses there. And I was like, if I don't make this funny, and that's kind of my personality anyway, like I'm just going to go up and talk about Nielsen ratings and some research metrics, and I'm going to get off stage.
Yeah.
So what I did was, and this is kind of where I realized I could do it. I developed material that would be funny. So I said, one thing, the difference between Telemundo and Univision, because I was at Telemundo, and I gave all these reasons. And then I was like, and also, people at Telemundo are incredibly good looking, and everyone at Univision is ugly. And then I said, and this was ballsy, Steve. Like when I look back on it, it could have bombed in front of like the people who would promote me and all that shit. So I said, I know what you're saying. You're looking at me and you're like, Jack, you're so damn good looking. People should just give you money for sales. And I was like, no, they don't just give me money for sales. I need to go do research. And that was the bridge to what I was supposed to speak about. But it was doing that told me like I got balls to say, I'm gonna write material. I was working it until the minute I got up. And I'm gonna do the material. And I killed in that presentation. Like I will tell you that presentation was close to 20 years ago. People still remember it.
That's
People will
fantastic.
tell me about it. So that's where I got that's where I realized I could do it.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, it's one thing to be a funny guy in your office. Totally different to be a comedian. But the public speaking and also like I'd walk into rooms that didn't want to talk to me. They just had to take the meeting and I had to kind of go through a half an hour or an hour of all of that made me ready. Like if you think about how you divide up the pie and how you're ready for stand up, um, I was ready to take the mic. It doesn't bother me if people heckle or people, and I don't get much heckle. People speak. I'm used to being on stage. I'm used to vamping a little bit.
Hmm.
So that was like, I'd say half to more of how it influenced me doing comedy.
That's huge. Yeah, that really you were working different rooms all the time. That's
Yes,
incredible. Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, I thought I had an advantage doing my little my nonprofit presentations that I've been doing for 20 years, but I think the more comfortable you are in front of people, obviously that's going to translate to stand up. And what you just said also about the being the funny guy in the office or whatever, there's so much around that of like it doesn't translate always to the stage for a lot of people. A lot of people are very
totally.
funny conversationally. I always say I'm better in front of a room full of people than I am with four or five people in conversation. It's just how I don't know. I don't know if it's the barrier or what it may be. And because people are like, yeah, nice guy, outgoing, whatever, but surprised that I do stand up until they see me maybe do a presentation or have a presence on stage, like being unassuming naturally and then just being confident enough. It's the confidence factor. I think that's it sometimes feels like it's like 50-50 of confidence and material in terms of what people respond to. Like your delivery could be better than someone else's and someone else could have better material. I was just speaking with someone else about that.
Confidence, especially in public speaking, and I'll say this too. I don't know where it comes from, but public speaking, like I'm kind of obsessed with it. Um, if you're confident, and I'd agree with like that's a little bit of what I've learned in doing stand up too. Is they're the jokes, but because I'll give you an example. I would go into these advertising agencies, and sometimes they would just kind of have to politely take my meetings,
Right.
but they didn't really want to hear. They've seen a million of them, and I would do this thing where I'd be like, "Good afternoon," and just jack them up a little bit, and that's like a tool. Like so now, when I get up on stage, I always do a little bit of, "Hey, how we doing, everybody? Like, so happy to see you." And what I'm telling the audience is I'm confident up on stage.
Hmm.
And I think that it allows the audience to know this guy knows what he's doing. And it comes from sales. But I think that confidence, like I've kind of learned you got your jokes, but it's also what I'd call like a gregariousness of me, like of kind of owning the stage. And I want people to know the second I'm up there that I own the stage. And then the jokes are as important, certainly. But I do think it's that mixture of confidence where people go, this guy, this guy is not scared to get up on stage. And I feel comfortable listening to him because he knows what he's talking about. And or he's got that vibe.
Yeah, I get it. And I've had like over the years just trying to do different things of comedy. It never works when you're kind of like coming up as like the Eeyore guy. I'm like, hey, what's up? Like not even a what's up, just kind of leaning into like the audience doesn't want to know that you're depressed, right? So you switch off that real quick and like you're immediately, like you said, owning the stage and people are paying attention. And
Yes.
that also gives you a runway to build up a longer bit, hit them with the punchline. That's going to land more. So yeah, that is what I'm learning in this short period of time, and what I've observed from people that I've watched over the years, having the opportunity to like control that stage. And I'll name drop here, but back in 2017, I produced a show when Shane Gillis was in Philly. And it was at like 120 seat theater. And another friend of mine, Steve Rinaldi, a touring comic who
Yeah.
also used to work in Chicago, he's like, he's the next guy. He like introduced me to him at a bar here. He's like, he's the next guy. And I had like sold this show to 120 seats or whatever. And just his presence, the laughter even back then, it's just like, yeah, I get it. This guy's going somewhere.
Yeah.
And not that I'm sorry if I trailed off there, but just thinking of what I saw over the years and who probably was the most famous person that I saw come through the Philly circuit would have been him.
And he's amazing.
Yeah.
And he's a tour de force. Like honestly, I love his Bud Light commercial where he's like, Bud Light over here.
Oh
And
yeah, yeah.
Frank shows up and he's like, Nevermore. Like but he has a comfort on stage. I think that's what you're projecting when you like, I love what you said. Like, there are times when I'm at a cocktail party, I don't feel like talking. But if you give me a mic in my hand and I'm getting up on stage, I know I could just do it. Like I had mentioned to you on email. So we just launched a new open mic and I hosted for the first
Right.
time last week. But I knew I could do it. It's just something, and it comes from sales and me. It comes from my public speaking skills, but also my comfort level. That like I wasn't worried at all. It was just
Mhm.
let's get this, like, thank everybody for coming, give some jokes, I think it makes people feel comfortable, right? They're there in the audience and they know that you've got it. Like like you're not, to your point, nervous or stuttering over your words.
Mhm.
You're like, hey, come take the ride with me.
Exactly. And for a host of of an open mic or a showcase, that's something that I'd like to work up to. And I see how difficult that is. It's your job to keep the audience engaged because unless you know the comics necessarily, you don't know what's coming next. And you're going to have to recover from that. You have to like do callbacks and things of that nature. So I also try to keep that in mind of like, okay, I don't want to fuck this up because I don't want the host to have to like I
Yeah.
don't want them to have to recover too much. It's like let me work with what I know and work on that before I try out too much new stuff, unless I'm in like a small bar show or something like that. But yeah, owning the stage, having that kind of confidence, that is a piece that is it's just so important. And I guess I should say, how's the mic going? How's that?
It
Just
was
started.
amazing. We did it in Evanston, Illinois, which is where Northwestern is, and it's kind of like a city right outside of Chicago. It sort of divides. Evanston's a great city, period. But Chicago leans right up to it, and the burbs lean up right up to it. We had never, and I say we, I'm in a comedy group called the Repeat Offenders, and we are, and many of us are older and got to this older. We all took classes at the Laughing Academy, which is in Glenview, Illinois. And again, that's where Kim Miller, who was from Second City, she runs that. So we've kind of been supporting each other, and we launched this open mic 5 minutes before, or let's say a half an hour before it began. Had no idea if anyone was going to come. We had 13 comics. Could see people from the Chicago comedy scene showing up. And it went from like literally half an hour before. We're like, because you don't RSVP for open mics
Right.
unless you put that out. This
Yeah.
is our first time doing it. It was awesome. It was just awesome. And as someone who's only 2.5 years into comedy, to launch our own open mic was thrilling. I just love being in the comedy scene. And so to have people who saw us and said, hey, I want to go to that. That's in my neck of the woods. And then to host and watch people do what I like to do, which is just go up and try some material. It was one of the coolest nights I've had in a long time.
That's fantastic. And you mentioned your scene. You said this group is are folks who started a little bit older. So what is the scene like in your area? What's how's that? How's the vibe?
Well, so we all met at this place, the Laughing Academy, which does actual shows with comedians from Chicago. Um, and they have an open mic that's usually pretty packed, and there's comics from Chicago. I've done some open mics in Chicago. Like, Chicago's a pretty easy city to navigate, even though it is obviously a big city. So you wind up seeing the same people from time to time, and the same spots to go. Um, some of us are a little older, so we're here in the burbs. We're trying to make our own way, and that's where we go to the Laughing Academy in the burbs open mic. Evanston always needed one. And then when you get into the city, certainly there are younger comedians and older comedians, but I feel it's pretty comfortable in both. I don't feel like when you're going to a mic and it's really funny is funny, in my
Yeah.
opinion, and that's what I found here in Chicago. If you're funny and you're working it, we had plenty of young comedians at our open mic. Plenty of open mics that I've gone to there might be a lot more younger comedians, but there's plenty of folks who are my age, and it's really about just getting out and doing it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. It's feels like the consistency, which I mentioned on another episode, and it seems to be coming up. It's like it doesn't work unless you stay consistent with it. Like I
Yes.
haven't gone out this week and I'm like, ah, shit. So I'm hoping that Friday night I can make it to a mic. It's just been a crazy schedule. Also helps to do this and have these conversations to continue like working that muscle. And it was just like always thinking about it and hearing different perspectives, which also works, but nothing's going to take the place of getting out and performing. But where do you see this taking you? Would you say your like artistic and comedic goals are?
So I really just want to be a comedian, honestly. And I'm not sure that I can call myself it yet, although I've done professional shows and, obviously just launched this open mic. A lot of my stuff, as you see in my clips, has been in Glenview and Laughing Academy, and I'll give credit to Kim and to putting me on shows there. But I feel pretty confident in my material. I'm still juggling life to get out more. I just want to be a working comedian, and that means like getting shows and being on lineups, and that's really my only goal. I don't intend to make a living from comedy. If I
Mhm.
did, that would be wonderful, and I would love that. But to me, just to continue to be good and figure out. I love like when I'm thinking about comedians. I love when a comedian's up there and you just lose time. Like you just love everything they say, the facial expression, the bit, the joke, the little bit that they say that kind of adds on to it. So to me, I just want to do that, and I feel really confident in my skills and my material and my jokes and my stage presence. Um, if a year from now I'm on shows and in lineups, that's the goal. I don't really have much beyond that. That will be like wonderful, and maybe if we're talking a year, I'll have more goals. But that's the goal, is just really to be a working comedian.
Cool. Who were some of those comics that you've watched growing up or that inspire you now? Like or I should say, when did you really start getting into stand up? And do you remember like who you were watching and appreciating back then?
I do, yeah. I mean, Sam Kinison, and I'm in my 50s, so it's kind of at the heart of me being a teenager.
Hmm.
Sam Kinison, Eddie Murphy, like I was, raw and delirious. I was a teenager around that time. In fact, I hadn't thought about this. I was listening to a tape of Eddie Murphy, obviously very dirty, and my dad walked in, and I was listening with my cousins and got really pissed off at me because he was, swearing and had a lot of dirty material. But like Eddie Murphy, I remember Jerry Seinfeld before Seinfeld, Gary Shandling, Sam Kinison, also like early Dave Chappelle. And I say early Dave Chappelle because if you go back and watch him in his early days, it's different. Um, Dave Chappelle is obviously a master and the master, but in New York, I went to see him at some comedy clubs, and um, I remember early Jon Stewart. So those were all people who influenced me, and I loved comedy from the minute I could consume it.
That's awesome. We share a common thread with Delirious, even though I'm younger than you. My friends and I, like rented Delirious, I think, from Blockbuster when we were in high school. And I remember our fathers were probably 20 when Delirious came out. And so, we weren't catching shit for listening to it because they were listening to it when they were younger. So that was nice to have around. Like my dad likes stand up, uh, for the most part. And that the whole 80s scene we like talked about a lot. Chappelle, you and I certainly overlap there because Chappelle's show hit when I was in high school, and that
Yeah.
was like the biggest thing on the planet at that point. Every day or every whatever nights it was on, we were talking about it the next day, like first period in school. Just everybody's just running the bits and just repeating everything, as of course, but um, it's also very cool that you got to see so many people come through the New York circuit for that.
Yeah.
Oh, you got to see like, well, you said like prime Dave Chappelle, early Dave Chappelle. Anybody else stick out that you remember? Jon Stewart, you said.
I don't know if you remember. I remember seeing him at a club.
Oh yeah, I remember. I know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I honestly, I wish I had leaned in more to comedy. Like I always loved it, but I was in my 20s running around New York. I will say if you haven't seen early, and there are a few out there, early Dave Chappelle specials. Um, for me, I love to see. I find when comedians are famous, it's like the first special, the one in which they're introducing themselves is especially as a comedian where you don't know them. Like, because once you know a comedian, that's a whole nother level, right? They can rely on that. But if you go back and watch, he's skinny, and
yeah,
he is. I mean, he's obviously was hilarious, but I would say his early stuff, like early Beatles, blah blah blah. But I can't remember who else I saw in New York. But always paying attention to those early days of those comedians, and to me, like even now, I'd much rather watch something on YouTube than Netflix because, like, I do find once a comedian's got 3 or 4 specials under their belt, when you know their lives, it's a different level of comedy. And I'm always interested in when I'm learning from comedians. Um, I'm interested in how do they present themselves when you didn't know them, right? Because
yeah. I
that's
100%
a
agree.
whole other. That's what you and I are doing, Steve. They don't know us, and we've got to hook them fast. So when I'm like trying to learn now, if I see, and this is, I love Jim Gaffigan, but 10 specials in, okay, I know your life. I know how many kids you have. I know blah,
Mhm.
blah, blah, blah. I want to watch that early stuff.
Exactly. I was just talking about Gaffigan with someone else. Oh, I had interviewed Tony Deo, who's he's great. I mean, he's a sleeper in terms of like I was surprised at how many people follow him and things like that. But we were talking about Gaffigan and like the guy's so famous, he's a comedian that does an encore, right? He comes back out to do Hot Pockets.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you've got when you've reached that level of fame, it's a different kind of thing. Like you're the Rolling Stones of comedy at that point. But the Chappelle thing, I think the early special we both might be thinking of is when I know he's got the bit when he sees a baby on the corner. He says, "What are you doing out here, baby?" And he says, "I'm selling
Yes.
weed."
Yes.
I think that one was in DC. I remember that one, and that's like 25 years ago, at least at this
Yeah. Or he's got a bit too about when he's having sex with his girlfriend and he finishes fast. He's like, I want bitch.
point.
But, I mean, obviously one of the greatest of all time.
Yeah,
But to watch him back then, it was like another level, in my opinion.
but he's reached a
And
point that's like he's sorry.
no, you would.
He's so insightful. Like he's gotten that it's like that Carlin trajectory. And I'm a huge George Carlin fan, but you see him go. I mean, I know he got political in the 80s and was always insightful in the 70s, but that change to like, okay, I'm very famous. I'm going to be a philosopher now and tell you about like my
Yeah.
perspective on the world, and I'm going to make it funny, but you don't need to know about my backstory and my life and things like that.
Well, like for comedians like us, we get, the thing about getting on stage, and to me, like that first joke, they don't know anything about you,
Right.
and you got to hook them fast. So even like, when you're watching Nate Bargatze, and by the way, I love him, but if you've seen Four Special, you kind of know him, his family, his
Hmm.
background. That's a totally different challenge than that's why I like to go to YouTube and I like the earliest specials because I'm learning from someone who like, hey, I don't know you. How are you going to get me? How are you going to keep me? How are you going to keep that flow going? So that's what I found. You know, so many times on Netflix, you're watching their third, fourth, fifth special. All right, they may be funny. Lots of times they're a little bit of my. I'm famous. I'm in Hollywood. You might have seen me in this movie. Um, that's not our game. Our game is like we got to get people fast. I have a
Right.
joke where I start out and I'm usually my opener has been I'm married. I'm a father of two. I always knew I was going to be a dad. I've had a dad bod since I was a teenager.
It works.
Ever since I was a teenager, I had the body of an out of shape 50-year-old man.
Hmm.
Now that I am a 50-year-old man, I'm kind of comfortable with my body.
Hmm.
And what I like that is I just told the audience who I was, that I'm married, so I don't have to introduce that I'm
Yeah.
married with kids. It usually gets a laugh, the dad bod stuff. But I also just introduced you to me. So now when I vibe into kid stuff or I vibe into wife stuff, I just told you who I was. Like the opener, how do you deal with that? The openers are very hard.
Well, now that you just said that, I
Riddles.
realize I've been doing it, and I say that I said I grew up in a neighborhood that was like the movie Do the Right Thing, if it was only told from the perspective of the pizza shop. So people get me. They know I'm like, hey, I'm not a racist. I grew up around a lot of racist people, and then I kind of like kind
Yeah.
of go from there a little bit. But that's been one that I've been using to hook people in. Now, a reference to a movie from 1989 works for people maybe in their 30s. I don't know if it's going to work. It's been working, but
Has
that's
it
what
been
I've been.
working?
That's what I've been starting with. Yeah, yeah, it's been working. Comics like it too. So. Um, and then I have other ones, but in terms of like introducing myself, that's usually what I've been doing. And then I say something. I have another one that's a little silly. That's like I just turned 40, and I'm happy that my grandparents are still around because not enough people call you handsome anymore when you turn 40. Something like that. So it's like shit
Yeah.
like that that I do. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's not, that's to me, it's one of the biggest challenges. You gotta open quick. You gotta get a laugh. You gotta
Yeah.
earn your stripes, if you will. Um, and when I'm watching comedy, that's why I kind of veer more towards YouTube and someone I haven't seen
Yeah, I think it's
more
important.
than that.
The fame stuff sticks out to me. I think Kevin Hart had a special where I think during COVID that I felt like he was just talking about himself being famous,
Yeah,
and I just turned it off. I'm like, why am I watching this? I don't understand. Like, I don't relate
Kevin
to
Hart's
this.
kind of the biggest example of someone who he's got so many. We know so much about his life. He's everywhere that
Yeah.
I don't even want to see his special because,
I'll
like,
say this though, the one he did in Philly a few years ago at the link, surprisingly, at the football stadium, he that special was really funny. And that was maybe 2023, I want to say. I enjoyed
oh,
that.
good to know.
I was like, okay, this is a nice shift of like it's actual like good material. Nothing comes to mind, but I just remember enjoying it when I watched it. I was
Yeah,
surprised. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, look, they're all very good. I mean, honestly, even Nate Bargatze's last special on Netflix was hilarious,
Oh yeah, it was. I
and
did watch
and
that.
it was Arena. It was Love Nate or something like that. He's fantastic, and his own entity, and you know what? It was a stadium show, which I probably wouldn't pay a ticket to go to that. Kind of sit up in the nosebleeds to watch a comedian, but he's fantastic.
Yeah, I enjoy him. I don't know any larger like big arena acts that I'm really like into now. I like back in the day I saw Sebastian Maniscalco when he was like playing the casinos and things like that. Now my mom loves him, stuff like that. He loved Italian old ladies love him, but
Yeah,
he's got his market. So there's that.
he's a Chicago guy, which
That's right.
actually I would have pegged him as New York, given his Italian.
That's right.
It's
He is a
not really
Chicago
like a
guy.
big Chicago thing, but he is a Chicago guy.
Yeah. Um, I know we didn't talk about I have other comedy questions, but you're also a deadhead. We
Oh
didn't
yeah,
talk
big
about that.
time.
Yeah. When did you get into them?
I met your dad in college in '90s, early '90s. Yeah,
Wow.
I honestly define myself as you can see a little bit in the background. I'm a Red Sox fan.
Okay.
I'm a deadhead. And I'm a comedy guy, and those are my three passions. I mean, music. But yeah, are you a deadhead?
Sort of. I got on the bus like, 5 years ago, something like that. But
Great.
I've been enjoying myself. I've seen Dead and Company 3 times. I like went out to the Sphere, checked that out. But I had a better time at a Citizens Bank show here in Philly, maybe like 3 years ago. It was one of the best concerts I've ever gone to. It was just the set list was wild. Plus they played New Speedway, which is my favorite, which is kind of the song that hooked me into them. Like
Okay.
I already was familiar with like Shakedown Street and the those albums, and then I heard that I'm like, oh, they also rock. I was like, holy shit, like I like this band, and then I just really got into them for a while. Um, I mean, I'm still a fan. I just haven't been listening as much. I think sometimes
Do you listen
ebbs and
to
flows.
Dead and Company, or do you listen to the Grateful
No,
Dead?
I listen to the Grateful Dead, but I go to see Dead and Company to
Yeah, of
see them live.
course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Oh man, I mean, listen, I actually, funny enough, the only other podcast I've been on was called Guest a Year, which is a podcast. Are you familiar?
yeah, yeah, and we talked about, but yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was it is a killer like game. Oh, it's a dead game show where these incredible deadheads they play like a minute of a song, and sometimes it's like a jam, and you have to guess the year, which is pretty hard. But when
Yeah,
you really lean in, you can kind of get into it. And I was on that about a year ago. Um, I'm a huge Deadhead. I mean, honestly, I'd probably listen to them. And I'm a jam band fan, so I like Goose and Dead and Company and other things. But no, I listen to the Dead almost every day.
awesome. That's great. I
And
was for a while.
you have a lot to get through as a new fan, which I think is wonderful. If I can ever help steer you in the right direction,
Oh yeah, I'm
certain
always open.
shows and years and things like that.
Yeah, obviously Cornell. I like the shows from is it the '90s at the Meadowlands, like early '90s. There's a version of The Wait on there that I really enjoy. It's just so. I mean, and yeah, I don't know. I don't want to trail off too much, but
That's where I saw
I
my
really
first shows, by the way, at
that's
Giant Stadium.
wow. That's awesome.
91 through like 95. Most of my shows were Giant Stadium.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the scene I'm sure was pretty wild back then. I mean,
Oh, it's amazing. Just amazing. Yes.
I went to yeah, the show that I said was the best I ever went to. I went alone and I had tickets to be on the field. I went in 22 and I didn't really enjoy it. I also felt like I wasn't in the right space, sitting in the right
Yeah.
headspace or in the right physical space of in the stadium. So yeah, I was locked in that one and it was awesome.
I totally understand. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's I love it. Been a big part of my life.
I guess the
Uh,
comedy question there is like, how do you feel? Like, I try to draw it all back in. I was thinking about that before our conversation. How does that, like rhythm or just the Dead being such an independent band, how do you feel like maybe that's influenced you either consciously or subconsciously to want to be a comedian and on stage?
I think probably the closest parallel is, to me, when you're watching a great comedian, you're in their hands, and that's where I'd mentioned earlier. Like it's not just the jokes; it's the joke, the facial expression, the side joke, how you kind of deal with the audience. So it's really the rhythm and the improv in a
Mhm.
way. Although I'd be lying if I said, "Oh, I think about the Dead when I'm writing."
Well, yeah, yeah,
Say I would say that improv of you're just with like when you see a great comedian, it it's not just oh they write funny jokes. They're just funny and they be here. And like okay, one of my favorite comedians is Kyle Kinane.
oh
Uh,
yeah,
are you familiar with him?
I'm familiar with them. Yeah,
He'll start a joke and it's almost like a Jerry jam. And then he goes here and then he goes there and you kind of forgot where he started. Then he brings it back around. And it's also just about his physicality. And it's also about the side notes of this and that. And to me, like that's the essence of when you're watching somebody and they're just taking you for a ride and you're just happy while you're there. So that's probably the best comparison of Jerry jamming and going here and there is, and that's the kind of comedian I want to be is like, you're not, and that's where, the confidence comes in. You're writing great jokes. You're writing big lifts, side notes, facial expressions, something to get the audience in, and the audience is just riding. Like when you see a great
yeah.
comedian, that's what you're getting, man. You just feel good the whole time.
I agree. That's the best way to put it. Yeah. Yeah. Riding that and staying with them. That's awesome. Um,
Yeah.
so I only had a couple more questions for you. Um, so far as a comedian, what's some of the best advice you received?
Some of it is just like don't don't worry too much about getting up, just get up and do it, you know? And it's also like being personal. Like when I first heard, hey, the more personal you can get, um, the better your comedy is. At first I was like, well, how can I be personal when I only have 5 minutes? But as I started to do more, to me, the things you do, we all have these things we do in our lives. And the more personal you can get, in fact, I kind of learned this from Nate Bargatze's first special, where he made fun of his own body. He had this joke where some old man mistook him for his wife, like he's an old wife or something like that. And
Mhm.
all of a sudden, that's where the dad bod came in. So it's like make fun of yourself, be open to your fears, and I'd say that's probably the best advice I've ever gotten is like you can be personal in 5 minutes. And frankly, the more personal you can get, the more silly you can get about yourself, the better the audience will react. The audience, they all have their own insecurities. And when you state them out loud, they love that because they got them, you
Right.
know? So I'd say that it's really about being personal and being unafraid to go there.
Great. What's a bit maybe that you have right now that's kind of just for you or that's just for the comics? Maybe it's not working for the audience, but comics enjoy it. Is there anything you have there?
Yeah. Well, first of all, like one of my best jokes is, and I don't know if in Philadelphia, at Walgreens is
We have it.
biggest. So they sell adult sex toys at Walgreens here. So I do this whole joke about that, and one of them that you could buy at Walgreens is a backside toy called Buzzy Butt. Um, and I do this joke about, I can't go buy Buzzy Butt at Walgreens. I'm there for my prescriptions. They all know me. I'm there at Walgreens every day. Like, I can't be like, oh, my doctor recommended this. I have a sore anus. That's just one that like we talk Buzzy Butt constantly.
Hmm.
And then there was this report in the New York Times about sitting too long and you get dead butt. And I'm like, oh well, the cure for dead butt is you can buy Buzzy Butt. So Buzzy Butt has just become this kind of thing that we're all like, we're always joking about Buzzy Butt.
Okay. That's funny. That's
Yeah.
funny. I like that. I like the thought of like that's also kind of like still an old school thought of like going to the pharmacist and like they know you. That's kind of fun. I haven't thought about that in a while.
Well, that's
Yeah.
part of the joke is
Yeah.
I can recall when, you'd be nervous to buy a condom and,
Hmm.
you buy a box, it's kind of a movie cliche. You'd
Right.
buy these condoms, you kind of hide it in a Coke. And this is actually the joke, and like some chips and some shampoo, but you can't hide Buzzy Butt, a backside toy for your pleasure. And then, by the way, and here's a fun fact, Buzzy Butt has ten switches for your pleasure. So, like, I've got a lot of vamping. Like, this is one of the things that I find like I could do 20 minutes on Buzzy Butt, or I could do two. But it's like, how many switches do you, one, no, I need more in Buzzy Butt, two, three, and then I'm like, by 10, you got to go to the hospital. So it's a joke that kind of I could literally spend 20 minutes on adult toys at Walgreens and Buzzy Butt, or probably better if I do 2 minutes on it. But
Right.
that's one that yeah, it always gets laughs, and my comic friends were always talking about it.
That's funny. I like it, man. That's really good. Um, what do you think your younger self would think about you now, or what would they say about your choice to pursue comedy?
My younger self would love it, and honestly, like I kick myself that I lived in New York City and I wasn't doing this. And look, I was busy and I was working my career and I was running around with my friends. But if I can go back and be like, hey, you can just attend an open mic in New York City. You had all the time in the world. My younger self would be just thrilled because I always loved comedy. And I think I always kind of knew I could do it, but now I'm actually doing it. So sort of pinch myself a little bit. Like if I'm on a show, I'm pinching myself. I just think this is so cool. What you and I do and what everyone does, and it's so cool. And it's one of those things that till I started it, I wasn't sure I could do it. It's like astronauts. How could they do it? How do those people go up and do it? And the fact that we're doing it, the fact that I'm doing it, my 25-year-old self would love it.
Awesome. That's great to hear. Thank you. This has been a pleasure. Is there anything
Thank
you
you,
want to
man.
add? Anything you want to add? Where can we find you?
You can find me in Chicago and at Jack Wolf Brown Comedy on Instagram. That's the best place to find me. But Jack Wolf Brown on Instagram comedy. Jack Wolf Brown Comedy, no E, JACKWOLF Brown Comedy at Instagram, and that's my handle there. And trying to make my way in the scene.
Great. I hope to see you around, and I hope to have you on again.
Thanks, brother.
Really great.
It's been great talking to you.
Thank you. Great talking to you.
All right.
So we'll cut there and edit, but I hope you're comfortable with everything. Thank you, Jack. Seriously.
That's fantastic, Steve. Yeah.
Cool.
I see you're wearing a Grateful Dead shirt now.
I did that for you.
I didn't catch that. Actually.
I did it for you, but I couldn't.
Yeah, I didn't catch that at first. No, this is great. This is great. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.